Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, I walk around the neighborhood, feeling blessed.
Hey guys, finally made it to the last unit of ACE International History, starting with chapter 4.1. What were the implications of the warlord era that affected China from 1916 to 1928? So, to start off, there were a lot of issues facing China. The ruling of the Manchu dynasty was ruling power, and Western countries like Britain, France, and Japan were taking more control over the Chinese land and trade. Basically, like, other countries had more power within China than China itself did. The government was too weak to stop them at the time, and China was like the citizens of China were upset with how poor the country had become, and a lot of them rebelled, and others wanted modern changes like better education and technology. There was one major leader called Sun Yat-sen, and he believed that this was true and that China had to modernize. He wanted China to become a democracy and catch up with like the Western world, so he wanted to take like ideas from the Western countries and mimic their government like that. In 1911, the emperor gave up the throne, and Sun Yat-sen hoped that China would finally become a republic, but he had a rival called Yuan Shikai, and he took control. Yuan wanted power for himself and ended up becoming a military dictator. He ruled by force, banned the KMT, which was like basically like a democratic political group, and crushed like any enemies that like dared to like threaten him. However, he died, and China broke apart into regions ruled by warlords who only cared about gaining power and money. This greatly weakened the country because there were so many problems within, and the warlords like hurt the lives of everyday people, especially the poor, and this caused a lot of chaos and like overall like big problems for China. Then we have the reasons for and impact of the May 4th movement. So by 1919, a lot of students in China were like tired of the country being controlled by foreign powers with like their spheres of influence and corrupt leaders like Yuan Shikai and like the warlords. And they were especially angry because the Treaty of Versailles gave Chinese land to Japan instead of returning it to China. So they ended up doing a like protest basically called the May 4th movement, which was when thousands of students like marched in Peking, and they wanted to protect China's independence and get rid of like their outdated traditions. This wasn't just for the protests, it also like pushed for better education, democracy, and rights of Chinese citizens. It also helped encourage the growth of new political ideas like communism. May 4th movement made many young people feel like hopeful and like they had a future, and it was like a stepping stone for China to become a better country. Then we have reasons for the growth of the Kuomintang under Sun Yat-sen. The KMT was led by Sun Yat-sen, and it started to grow stronger during this time. Sun believed in three principles, which was nationalism, make China strong and free from foreign control, so people would like take pride in their country. Second one is democracy, which was to let people vote for their leaders and like not have to be under a dictatorship. And lastly, social reform, which was to improve the lives for workers, farmers, and students. These ideas were very popular with other people and poor people who wanted to change. The KMT also grew because it got help from Russia and formed a partnership with the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, and with this support, like the KMT built schools, they helped increase the military and started working towards a better future for China. However, he also ended up passing away in 1925, but his ideas were very popular, so they lived on. And then Chiang Kai-shek became the new leader and continued to grow the KMT. Then we have the Northern Expedition, which was after Sun Yat-sen died. Chiang Kai-shek led the KMT's army on a northern expedition, which was a military campaign to defeat the warlords and reunite China under one government. The army grew fast from people. It was like 100,000 to like I think over 250,000 soldiers in just a couple months. And the KMT was well organized, trained by Russian advisors, and got modern weapons from the USSR and Germany. The warlords were poorly trained since they lived in rural areas, and a lot of them actually ended up joining the KMT or giving up their land after being defeated by them. But in doing this expedition, the KMT controlled many areas and gained a lot of land from Peking to Nanking. And it was like looking good for China, like things were finally going good. But there was also problems that started after this because nothing's good all the time. And the warlords still held power in like a lot of places, and there was only like disagreements within the KMT on what to do about this. Also in the north, Japan was becoming more aggressive in places like Manchuria, and Japan was becoming a world power during this time, so they had a strong influence on China. And although the KMT had successes, like the journey to unite and build a stronger China was not even close to being done. So that ends this chapter. Basically, China faced serious problems in the beginning from the warlords and weak government, like the emperor. And thanks to movements like the May 4th movement and the KMT rising, people began seeing issues and like started fighting for a change. Even though China wasn't like fully together yet, these helped bring them together.